Jam. Toon Jam. Hello and welcome once again to Toon Jam. I am Matt.
And I'm J-Man.
And we are covering more MTV cartoons for you today. We have so far visited 2 in our journey. So that was The Head last week, and before that, Aeon Flux. This week we are turning our eye to the Maxx, and that's Maxx spelled M-A-X-X for those that may not know. Now you do. It was a show that was based on a comic book series and adapted into an animated series as part of the MTV program Oddities. The show covered Darker Image issue 1, the Maxx issue 1 and 2, and issues 1 to 11 of the regular series. So they did the Maxx series after that. And the show depicted the introduction of Julie, the original Maxx, Mr. Gon, and later Sarah. Therefore, the TV series did not go into the same depth as the books. Interestingly there, though, it does note the original Maxx, so who knows what happens later on in the series. Well, or in the books. But a little fun tease for you there, if you want to go out and read it. The animation frequently changes in style. In one scene, characters may be rendered in detail, but in the next, it may be simplified cartoons. Often this is done to show a change in perspective. CGI and live action elements are sometimes integrated or interspersed with hand-drawn animation as well. In 1996, the series was released on VHS. In 2009, it became available to stream on MTV.com, though only to American audiences, as usual. In 2009, it also became available on DVD exclusively through Amazon.com. It contains all the episodes and commentary for each one, with the creator of the comic and show, Sam Keith, and director Greg Vanzo. So there you go. Pretty interesting stuff. Interesting show. Yeah. Not many episodes, but it's very of the time, very 90s. Mm-hmm. I never saw it growing up. I don't remember it at all. I don't know if you do.
No, neither did I. I never watched it as a young boy.
But it has a sort of Spawn vibe to it, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's very familiar, isn't it?
Yeah, like homeless superhero living on the streets. Is pretty much down and out. But it does have this whole imaginary world, like not imaginary world, but other world to it. So the story's taking place kind of over 2 different worlds. And it's got loads of weird creatures in it and stuff. But it tends to spend, at least we watched episodes 1 and 2, and it tends to spend more time in a sort of maybe New York City.
Yeah.
It might be a fictional one. It never says in those episodes, as far as I'm aware.
You can just assume it's New York because it's like horrible, and it's the early 90s. So, as we've learned from previous episodes, yes. New York was just big pile of trash in the late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah.
According to all the cartoons that documented it. So.
Yeah, very much so. And this was released in 1995. So it's, still riding that high. But obviously the comic was released earlier, so yeah, it makes more sense. Fun fact, there was in 2008, Chris Vick, I don't know if you know who that is, but he made an Atari Jaguar homebrew video game demo based on the Maxx. Fun fact. Also, in November 22nd, 2019, so not brand new news, but recent, Channing Tatum and Roy Lee announced their intent to produce a film based on the Maxx.
Oh, Channing Tatum as the Maxx.
He's desperate to get on that superhero scene, isn't he?
Yeah.
Gutted by Gambit, no doubt.
Yeah, that's it.
There's also a role-play game.
Yeah.
Based on the characters and the setting. So there you go. Fun facts.
Lots of Maxx content out there.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a bit of a cult hit.
Yeah.
I think by the sounds of it. I have heard of it before, but only through comics rather than, remembering it from TV or anything.
Yeah.
So, like I say, we watched the first 2 episodes, and it's got sort of the intro seems to give you more of the overall story than the first 2 episodes do.
Yeah, the intro is like really helpful in like telling you what's going on.
But I suppose, if you were reading it, you wouldn't need that.
Yeah.
And this feels very much like a motion comic, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And if you don't know what a motion comic is, it's basically when people take the panels of the comics and then create a sort of cartoon with it. So it isn't really animated. It's animated, but far less. And it's like a really pretty much book to screen adaptation.
Yeah.
So it's like an audiobook, but visual and with comics. Just to cover that ground. But this feels very much like that. It looks the same as the comics. The art is pretty much the same. I imagine there's panels the same.
Yeah, you got that impression, didn't you? That they were literally just taken off the page.
Yeah. But it's got a nice... it's got an interesting feel to it. Even though you don't know what's going on, it's intriguing.
Yeah.
Enough.
And I think there's like the thing that I think I noticed very quickly, even though it has got some like massive Spawn comparisons, is that this does have some like humor to it, which Spawn was like really lacking.
Yeah, absolutely devoid of.
Yeah. So like, even though there's loads of bits of this where there's shadowy elements in dank alleyways and stuff, it's like it doesn't feel like it doesn't make your spine tingle with just how grim it is.
Yeah.
You're just like, oh yeah, this is kind of nasty, but that's kind of the point, and you can just kind of still go along with it without feeling like your day's been ruined.
Yeah, exactly. This is sort of it's almost like fixing the problems that Spawn had.
Yeah.
As it goes. And it's weird because it's almost, the story is more outlandish, it seems.
Yeah.
So it seems like you don't really know from watching the first 2, but there's another world called the Outback. It explains that. But it seems like it's the Max's dreams. But by the end of the second episode, we kind of get the idea it's not his dreams. Because there's this villain guy. I can't remember his name.
No, I can't either.
But he narrates the intro. It's one of the only reasons you really know who he is. So early on. But you do see him, don't you?
Yeah.
But it's your drip-fed story. And then at the end of the second episode, there was sort of a what happens next time.
Yeah.
Which I felt I'd watched the third episode in a way.
Yeah.
So that, and I think episode 3 is basically the story unfolds. From what I can gather.
Yeah, it seems that way.
But yeah, it was, like you say, it had some good humour. It had some really good overtones. There's a lot about the way, like, victim shaming.
Yeah.
And how women are blamed almost for, being attacked by men.
Yeah.
just because of things like, well, what they wear. It's guaranteed, but it does it in a way that's quite sensitive, and you know, it is. Well, I say sensitive. It's not what I mean. It's more like they do it in a way that hits the point, makes it obvious, but doesn't make it too obvious. It's nice and subtle.
Yeah, it's like
it's not subtle, but it is.
No, it's delivered in a way that's like it doesn't feel just like too on the nose sort of thing.
Yeah, it's
like,
it's tactfully.
Yeah,
yeah,
definitely.
What I'm looking for.
Yeah, because it's like once you, like if you sort of aware of what's going on, you're like, oh, they're approaching that pretty head on. But then I guess it would go over some people's heads. So it's like they found a really good middle ground there to tackle it, because essentially it's sort of it's mainly about what the woman's dressed in, isn't it? Like
yes,
which is
keep saying like. So the first thing we see her, she's what does she do as a job?
She's like a social worker, isn't she?
Social worker, that's it. And she's trying to help he's like a hobo or something, get a job. And he's a bit strange. He's got like a blanket over him, and he's not very good at answering her questions. But at one point he says, doesn't he? You're a social worker. You look more like a hooker.
Yeah.
And she just kind of, bats it off.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of that in there where it's just kind of like saying, well, you should be able to wear what you want without being blamed for something like that.
Yeah.
It's a good, and it's good that was sort of it's not a message you'd expect to find in a cartoon anyway.
No.
But B, in a cartoon that looks like this.
Yeah.
Because the first thing I thought was like, what a weird costume for her to be wearing.
Yeah, I thought that as well.
It's like, why would she wear that? And then they sort of say that, and you're kind of like, well, I suppose it serves a purpose then.
Yeah, yeah. And so like early 90s as well, like.
Yeah. I mean, that's something that's still being discussed today.
Yeah.
Which may not seem like much later, but this cartoon is now, what, 25 years old?
Yeah.
That's then we might have, I mean, you might be listening to this, you might be younger than that topic. So, pretty interesting stuff.
That is pretty good.
But still, it handles topics like that, and I don't really like the art style, to be honest. But I think that's just it's not my cup of tea.
Yeah.
It's very of the times, and at the time, I imagine it was really like very modern, avant-garde. There's a lot of books that look like that as well at the time.
Yeah.
But it's like it's got a sort of grotesque feel to it. It's really dark and not gritty, but grungy. Yeah, it still feels, with those topics and that, lighter than Spawn.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And perhaps lighter is the wrong word, but it still feels more manageable in your own mind, if you understand me.
Yeah, because I think because it is somewhat like, it seems like it's somewhat satirical as well. Like,
yeah,
because like they clearly sort of knew what was going on in comics in that time, and sort of like took their own stab at it, and like obviously clearly took many elements from it, but also weren't afraid to be like, yeah, this is kind of very of the times right now, and like this is what everyone else is doing. And because doesn't he make a reference to like the mask at some point as well?
He does, but I think that might be actually something to do with his mask,
right?
As opposed to a reference to the mask.
The mask.
Yeah.
But then there's clearly like bits where there's like shots where like the woman at the start, that you see like a bit of a cloak sort of moving around in the wind, very Spawn-esque. and she's like, "You're not," and he's like, "No, I'm not." And you wonder if she's thinking Spawn in her head.
Yeah.
And the bad guys also got loads of these like weird little like black blob things with teeth that clearly look like they're from the darkness as well.
Yes,
So
yeah.
there's lots of early image elements.
Yeah, definitely. And like you say, it does feel more satirical. And I mean, it is important as well. It is satirical and not a comedy.
Yeah.
Which is what sort of gives it a certain amount of gravity as well.
Yeah.
Because obviously it was a comedy, you know, you notice the poignancy less. Like, it's not a bad thing that something's a comedy. It's just for subjects like this, satire is much better at forwarding the point.
Yeah.
And it does that quite well. But yeah, I think his mask is something like it's something to do with that other world, the outback.
Right.
Because I saw something with an actual mask. I don't know if it's supposed to look like a tribal mask or something when he's not wearing it.
Yeah.
But I'm really not sure. I mean, we don't know much about him at this point, do we really?
No.
But that is also the point. Because you're getting drip fed stuff, and in the second episode he gets confronted by the villain, and he's starting to remember things a little bit.
He's a pretty crazy design as well, isn't he? The Maxx, like his proportions are like really bizarre, like clearly exaggerated for purpose or whatever. But like it's just weird what they've exaggerated, isn't it? Like his feet are huge.
His feet, yeah. He looks like he looks like a video game character, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Like his feet are just massive. He looks like basically a gorilla, but with a really, really big feet, so that if he was a toy, he could stand up easily.
Yeah, it's like a gorilla on skis.
Yeah. But I mean, maybe that was why. Maybe he just thought he wouldn't be able to stand up otherwise.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah.
But it is, again, it's also part of that art design, isn't it? And fits in with that grungy 90s look.
Yeah, and he's got those huge like teeth or whatever, but I don't even know if they're his teeth or if that
that's what I because I always didn't understand the teeth, but I don't know if that's part of the mask.
Yeah, maybe it is, because when he talks, his mouth doesn't move, does it?
No.
And he's always talking out loud, which is another thing that's like pretty funny.
And when he said
doing his monologues,
yeah.
but then he realizes that he's just actually just saying it, and everyone can hear him talk.
Yeah, which is more of that satire in it as well.
Yeah.
A monologue. But yeah, I think when the policeman tries to take his mask off and he says he got bit by him again, and he was like, mask. So I think the teeth are on the mask.
Right.
But it's anyone's guess at this point. I'm sure there's people listening now. You may have read it. You may have watched it all. And
you're like punching the walls right now. Like,
yeah.
These guys just don't get it.
2 episodes, they think they know everything. It's true. But that's part of the fun. Just trying to figure it all out.
Yeah.
Those bite-sized morsels. But yeah, there's some cool stuff in it. And like you say, and just the fact that he's wearing like a superhero suit is almost strange. Because it doesn't seem they're like almost leading up to the fact that he's going to become a superhero. So maybe later on. But there's a lot of that kind of stuff. You know, the 80s and early 90s comics. Yeah. Where you kind of wonder, 90s comics in general, you kind of wonder why people are wearing superhero suits.
Yeah, I know.
Just literally to have a visual suit. Because it doesn't really go with it, with the whole vibe.
No.
But that's almost part of the character.
Yeah.
Of these works. But it definitely feels like a story of that era, but one of the better ones, because obviously anyone that knows about comics knows that 80s there were some really good comics, 90s there were some really bad comics. I mean, there was good and bad in both, so you know, and this is one of the good ones from the 90s, so it's interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting. It wasn't what I was expecting. I think mainly because of, you know, the look of it. you kind of, I guess it's kind of in your brain already of like what something that looks like that is going to be like, and it wasn't exactly that, so that was quite a nice surprise, really.
Yeah, because it's like, yeah, it's strange. It's almost like a film noir.
Yeah.
With elements of fantasy, which is not really something that you often see.
No.
Outside of like maybe the Discworld noir game. For those that know, the Discworld noir game.
There's like 3 people cheering their head off.
Like, finally! Yes!
I am recognised!
Let's come! A majorly underrated game, frankly. Go and look it up. I'll say that. But yeah, well, okay. So shall we move on to our reviews?
Yes.
Are you a social worker or work in some other professional setting? Do you need new clothes that'll really give you that professional shine? Well, try new the Maxx fishnets. Fishnet tights built for every professional situation. It's as wearing as much as you can, but wearing nothing at all. Fishnets. They're great, but don't take my word for it. Why don't you listen to Mike here from the docks?
You know, I used to work the docks. I still do. I've been working them for a long time. You throw the net out and bring it in. I throw the net out and bring it in. And then I thought, you know what? Why didn't I wear the fishnets? And you know what? My legs look pretty good. I like these.
He likes them, and I think you will too. So if you want your fishnets, ring 0800 fishnets today. Call now. So if you've listened to Toon before, you will know that we have a 3-point rating system that goes as follows. Thumbs up, ambiguity. Thumbs down, gritty New York in the late 80s, early 90s, and a shaky middle, wearing fishnets for work. So it's good, bad, not sure. So the Maxx, episodes 1 and 2, your thoughts?
Yeah, like I said, not what I expected, which is always good. So going in strong. I did like, the fact that it had a little humour to it. It wasn't too 100% grit like some of them are. Obviously tackled some issues I wasn't expecting would be tackled, which is also good. The art was like, again, not particularly my favorite either, but I think they did some good stuff with it, and like the comic aspect was pretty well done. Like it's a decent motion comic. Like I've seen much worse from like more modern things, and weirdly it almost feels like new now, since we've got so many like comic versions of stuff that don't look like comics anymore. Like going back, it's almost like, oh yeah, this actually looks like a comic, so that's quite nice. But I think overall, I did kind of want to know what was unraveling in the show, and it wasn't too unbearable that I wouldn't want to watch more, unlike the previously mentioned Spawn. So for me, I think it's going to be a thumbs up for the Maxx.
Okay, thumbs up.
Yeah.
I agree. Obviously, we've covered a few points on it. It had enough class to cover points, make you laugh, but not just take the mick out of stuff too much. It was intriguing. The biggest problem I think is with the art, and sort of I like that it's a motion comic, but I also feel like it sort of ruins the animation a little bit. Pulls it back a little bit, but not enough to ruin it at all, and you do still want to know what goes on. I don't know if I'd watch any more of it, but I'd certainly read it. I think it made me want to read the books more, but that might just be me and my way of taking in stories. But either way, yeah. So I think for me, I'm going to say thumbs up as well. Somewhere near a shaky middle.
Yeah.
But it was good enough not to be a shaky middle, so it is a thumbs up.
Yeah.
From me. So yeah, 2 thumbs up.
Ah.
Back on track.
Yeah.
So far so good. It's not usual we chance through. We've not had a thumbs down in a while now.
No.
Doing pretty well. So MTV, so far so good.
Yeah, MTV.
And we have covered other MTV cartoons before, which have also received good reviews.
Yeah.
So
it's like they were onto something back then, it seems.
Yeah, definitely. I think we've got a few more MTV cartoons to go through, so get ready for another next week. And until then, just want to say thank you for listening. It really means a lot to us, because obviously we get to do it and it's fun, and that you actually want to listen to us. Hey, that's groovy. So if you want to listen to more of us, we also have a Patreon, which you can pay a small fee to, and you'll get bonus episodes. And if you just want to help us out, then please rate and review us. It really helps other people find us. It really helps us get out there and helps us take the podcast further. Otherwise, just thank you for listening. And until next time, stay jammy.
Hey everyone, thank you for listening. If you want to help the show keep going, you can be extra jammy by heading over to our Patreon page at patreon.com/toonjampod. Here you can get a shout out on the show or unlock bonus episodes. Ratings and reviews anywhere you listen to the podcast also really help us out. So thank you, and stay jammy.